Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're looking at cooking Hungarian goulash, or what's known as a kettle goulash. This is traditionally cooked in an enamel kettle known as a bograk, which is then used over an open fire. This is what they look like. However, we're doing ours in our trusty Petromax Dutch Oven, but we are going to be cooking this over an open fire the same way. So let's run through the ingredients. So we've got about 1400 grams of diced lean beef, stewing steak or shin of beef, anything like that is going to cook for a long while. We've got 4 finely diced onions, 4 finely diced green peppers, so about 200 grams of diced up bacon there as well. And then potatoes, we've got about 1500 grams of potatoes, most of them cut into cubes like this, but 1 medium potato is being grated finely and kept separate. And then we've got a couple of teaspoons of salt, 4 or 5 tablespoons of some cooking oil there, some finely ground up caraway seeds, some sweet paprika, a little bit of pepper, a couple of tablespoons of tomato puree, and a couple of tablespoons of some garlic, and then that's an equal mix of water and red wine, so about 2 cups of each, about 500 mils of each. Okay, so as I said, we're going to cook this over an open fire in a traditional manner. So this is an old faithful little alien fire pit. Let's get the fire going, get some good embers on there. Now the difference between this and the traditional goulash, the recipe that you may have seen, goulash varies widely, even in Hungary, which is its original home. The one that's cooked in a kettle outdoors generally tends to be a little bit thicker. Goulash can be quite watery, and so there is also sort of goulash soup, which is very watery. There's lots of variations throughout Eastern and Central Europe, and obviously with European immigrants into the US, there's lots of variations there as well. But this is based on a traditional Hungarian recipe from where the actual dish originated. Okay, so we've just got some good hardwood on there that's going to just burn down nicely into embers. Right, so we've got the Dutch oven over the fire warming up. Once that starts to get hot, we'll go in there with the oil. You can use bacon fat, lard, any oil for doing this. Just happen to use some light cooking oil that we had outdoors, and then in with the bacon. So this is going to render down and just give that nice smoky flavour. So we want to cook that through till it starts to go brown and the fat's all rendered down. So we come back to it in a few minutes. You can see that fat is rendered down nicely, and bacon is starting to brown, taking on some colour. That will add a nice flavour to it. So once we're happy with that, we're in with the onions. So as I said, 4 finely diced onions gone in there. So quite medium, large size onions. Just normal brown onions. So we're going to get that stir that into the fat, which has got all that bacon fat rendered down into it now. And then again, we're just going to cook this for a good few minutes till the onion starts to go soft and translucent, and actually starts to take on a little bit of colour. We don't want to go really dark brown, but just starting to sort of brown, get a nice golden brown colour. So this is a few minutes later. You can see that's heated up. The bacon's already rendered down. The onion's gone nice and translucent. Just starting to go that very slight golden colour there. Okay, so at this point we go in with our beef. So again, we've got 1400 grams of diced beef here. This is just sort of lean diced beef, but you can use any stewing meat, chuck, chin, anything like that. There are lots of variations, as I said, on this recipe. Some recipes will use pork. You've got pork goulash, so lots of variations on the beef, but we're just going with fairly traditional diced beef in this. So it's quite a small dice, but you can sort of keep it as chunky as you like. So we're going to stir that around. Going to try and get a little bit of colour on this. Obviously, there's a lot of ingredients in one pan, so it's not going to go really dark brown. But we're just going to keep sort of stirring that. So it's got a little bit of colour on the outside and just starting to brown a little bit. So here we are a few minutes later. You can just see it's just starting to, all the redness has gone, just starting to take on a little bit of colour on the outside of the meat. So what we're going to go into now is just going to stir in the garlic. We give that a little bit of cook. We don't want to cook that for too long, don't want it to burn, it goes very bitter. So literally just stirring a little bit in at this stage. And literally that's just going to get 30 seconds or so. Just to take the harshness out of it. It's going to then simmer for a long time after this anyway. It doesn't need to cook too much at this stage. Right, now we're going with the paprika. So we've got about 4 tablespoons of paprika here. This is normal, this is sweet paprika. Ideally, if you can get Hungarian, even better. But what you don't want is hot paprika or smoked paprika. You can use hot if you want a spicy dish, but this recipe we're sort of going with a fairly conventional sweet. And this paprika, not only was it going to give a wonderful colour, it's going to give a lot of flavour. The main predominant flavour in this is from the paprika, and also it's going to help thicken that sauce a little bit. Like I said, this Kettle Goulash does tend to have quite a thick sauce. Part of that is from the volume of paprika. So we're stirring that into the meat. Make sure it's well incorporated, nicely coats all the meat, and then we're going to come back to that, let that cook for a minute or two. So you can see all that meat's nicely coated in the paprika. Then we're going to go in with tomato puree. You can chop up fresh tomatoes, you can even add tins of tomatoes, but we've gone for a good sort of 2 or 3 tablespoons of normal tomato puree in there. Again, giving that a good mix in. Doesn't really need to cook for too long, just gets thoroughly mixed in with all the meat and the onions. And then we're going to add our seasoning. So good few teaspoons of salt there. Obviously to taste, you can add more later, but you want a good couple of teaspoons in there now. And then the other flavouring in this is a bit of about a teaspoon of black pepper in there. And then this is the other main flavouring of the paprika. This is ground caraway seeds. So these add a very distinctive flavour. That sort of traditional Hungarian goulash. The flavour is predominantly from the paprika and caraway seeds. It's not everyone's favourite flavour, but this is, to me, what makes a good tasty goulash. So once those spices go in there, we're now going to add that grated potato. This is going to go in quite early on, and this will break down with the cooking and eventually dissolve. When it's this, it's going to thicken the sauce. So we're not going to add any flour or other thickening agents to this. Most of that thickness has come from the paprika and from this potato, which will almost completely disintegrate within the dish as it's cooked. Then we'll add in the liquid. So this is an equal mix of your nice dry red wine. Ideally, if you've got Hungarian bull's blood, that's the one to go for. I couldn't get hold of any of that, so I think this is just a Malbec. But any sort of nice dry, good decent red wine, and water. And it's about equal amounts of both. So there's probably about sort of 2 cups or 500 ml of water, and the same of red wine in there as well. that good mix. That's it, so you can see everything's in there. What we're going to do is just let this get up to temperature so it comes to sort of a low simmer. So give that a few minutes, and once it's sort of nicely simmering away, I'm going to just cover that up, stick the lid on. So there we go, you can sort of see that's getting up to temperature now, bubbling away, lots of steam coming from there. Do one final mix. That's it, and on with the lid. So this now needs to cook for good hour and a half, if not longer. We want that meat to sort of almost be falling apart. But obviously we're going to carry on cooking it later on once we have the other ingredients. So don't take it too far. But yeah, a good hour and a half is probably about right. Over a low heat, we don't want it to boiling away rapidly, or even though the lid's on. We don't want things to burn. We don't want it to sort of start falling apart too much. So a bit of a blaze initially, but we'll just actually let that fire die right down, and so it's just cooking gradually over embers for most of that cooking. I'm not going to add anything to it. So check it periodically, obviously just making sure it's not drying out too much. You can add additional liquid if you want, either water or wine or a mix of both to top it up. As I say, there's no stock in this one. With the flavouring of paprika and caraway and the salt, it doesn't actually need it, but you can add stock. It won't take, just add a different flavour to it. So just check it sort of halfway through cooking, make sure it's not drying out, not burning on the bottom. And then once it's sort of got to this stage where the meat is sort of nice and tender, in with our peppers. So again, that's 4 big green bell peppers diced up. Give that a mix in. And then in with the potatoes as well. So this was about 1500 grams of potato minus the one that was grated and went in at the beginning. As again, with different goulash recipes, you may see carrots, parsnips, celeriac, all sorts of other veg added to it. As I say, we're sticking with this fairly traditional kettle one, where primarily it is just the green bell peppers and potato. But you obviously can add whatever veg you want to there. So depending on the potato and what type of potato you've got and how easily they break apart, at this point you sort of want to keep an eye on it. If there's a potato that's just going to eventually go to mush, then you want to make sure you don't let it cook for too long. So we're stirring everything in there and just getting it nice and mixed in. We'll stick the lid back on, and then we'll just probably simmer it for about another 20 minutes and then check it, make sure the potatoes are tender, but certainly don't want to leave it too much longer than that, because obviously if it's something like potato that you can make mash with, that will eventually break down to nothing. So we want to retain a little bit of bite and texture in those potatoes. So just keep it simmering. So with this particular one, I was going to eat it the next day, so the lid went on, it's come to the boil, lid went on, and then we almost let the fire die out, let it cool down, and then at the end of that period, the potatoes were just about done, and then literally reheated it the next night. And sometimes with things like this, stored for a day and then reheated actually really boosts that flavour, lets everything sort of, the flavours all meld together. So this was it. Following day, just brought back to the temperature. Make sure it's boiling, and then it's ready to serve. So this is it, Kettle Goulash, cooked over an open fire in a Dutch oven. Served simply. We just had this with some homemade sour cream and some bread. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe for the channel to be notified of other videos as they come out.